All right. We got to get started. So let's get into it. I want to get started with what's going on with NVIDIA. Obviously, we got a lot of different things to talk about, and we will keep going from there. So first of all, let's get into the actual stock price of NVIDIA right here. It's recovering a little bit, 121.92, up 3%. That's nice to see. It is not a full-on recovery, obviously, after losing 17% yesterday, but still, it's not bad that we're getting a little bit of reprieve in the pre-markets. Now, a couple stats on what happened yesterday that I think are actually pretty mind-blowing when you look at it. First of all, NVIDIA lost $600 billion. These are the worst days in a row, or the worst days ever for NVIDIA and for the broader market. You had Meta lose $232 billion on February 3rd. You had Tesla lose $140 billion in November 2021. Apple lost $100 billion in March 2020. NVIDIA takes the cake, $600 billion, January 27, 2025. I don't think anyone is ever going to forget that day again, just given how much of that market cap was lost. Now, who bought the dip? Well, I bought the dip yesterday. I know a lot of you guys bought the dip. And given I'm a retail investor, you are a retail investor as well. Here's what we got right here. Retail investors reportedly bought $562 million, $500 million of NVIDIA stock during yesterday's DeepSeek-led rout. This is from Vanda Research. This is either bullish or bearish to you. To me, the jury's out, right? Because we kind of have no idea what's going on with NVIDIA. Either it's going to be retail that got rich off NVIDIA stock, and we know retail got rich off NVIDIA stock. I mean, the toots really started pumping it around, call it 95, 110. They were not in this name when it was 30, 40, 50 bucks, and that's when retail was primarily buying it. So I do think retail made a lot of money off of NVIDIA. So you would argue that retail knows best when it's time to step in and buy the dip on NVIDIA when something is getting too excessive. This is what they did on August 5th when NVIDIA fell from 130 to 92 as well. But you could also say it's bearish because there wasn't a lot of big money coming in to buy this dip. It was kind of more individual investors like you and I. And there might be a lot more pain, a lot more algorithmic volatility that's led that is currently not going to stop when it comes to dealing with NVIDIA. So I think the jury's out on if that's good or bad, but nonetheless, $500 million of NVIDIA was bought by retail investors. And I guess NVIDIA is going to now have to prove how good it is and how resilient it is to deal with some of the volatility on the second day. DeepSeek's response, or NVIDIA's response to DeepSeek, for those that missed it yesterday, this is what NVIDIA said. DeepSeek is an excellent AI advancement and a perfect example of test time scaling. DeepSeek's work illustrates how new models can be created during that technique, leveraging widely available models and compute that is fully export control compliant. Again, NVIDIA kind of saving their ass here and saying that, we think they got the chips in a very legal way, so don't say that we illegally gave them the chips. Now, they said right here, inference requires significant numbers of NVIDIA GPUs and high-performance networking. We now have 3 scaling laws, pre-training and post-training, which continue and new test time scaling. Essentially saying, hey, there's more efficiencies in how people train on top of our GPUs, but that doesn't mean that you don't need a significant number, quote unquote, of NVIDIA GPUs and high performance networking. So kind of reading between the lines, they're saying, yeah, you need a lot of GPUs. We think they probably had a lot of GPUs, even if they have new creative ways to be able to train models on top of those GPUs. But nonetheless, the architecture and infrastructure that is needed in order to make those GPUs operational are still NVIDIA GPUs. And you shouldn't get it twisted. That's how I'm reading the NVIDIA response yesterday. Now, we also had someone that is very important in the AI ecosystem named Sam Altman, and he had a response yesterday. And, well, here's what he had to say. DeepSeek's R1 is an impressive model, particularly around what they're able to deliver for the price. We will obviously deliver much better models, and also it's legit invigorating to have a new competitor. We will pull up some releases. So you got Sam Altman saying, all right, it's good. We're going to do much better. So that's kind of the sort of the competitive side of him coming out. But he's happy to have a new competitor, which I guess is bullish in terms of how he's thinking of it. Then he says, but mostly we are excited to continue to execute on our research roadmap and believe more compute is more important now than ever before to succeed at our mission, aka buy NVIDIA. The world is going to want to use a lot of AI and really be quite amazed by the next generation models that are coming. Looking forward to bringing all of you AGI and beyond. So Sam's take is, hey, we need a lot more NVIDIA chips. We're happy that we have a competitor. We think this competitor is going to be a worthwhile competitor, but this is not a competitor that's going to put us out of business, and it's not a competitor that's going to stop us from doing what we need to do in the case of bringing AGI. Now, what is Sam talking about here? In my opinion, I think Sam is talking about the argument that we've heard pretty much throughout the past 24 hours. If you listen to any analyst that's bullish on NVIDIA, Stacy from Bernstein kind of made this argument. And I'm kind of buying into this argument more and more, that regardless of the creativity that is going to be deployed against training on these models, which is not just happening in America, but happening internationally, which, by the way, should be happening internationally. Like if we're going to assume that NVIDIA is, or that AI becomes a real thing and everyone has access to these GPUs, at least to an extent, then people will innovate and find different ways to get creative with how they're training on top of their GPUs. If that's the case, then it's not that NVIDIA is going to be less important. It's just that more people are going to build on top of the infrastructure that exists, which means we're going to have more AI applications, more AI agents, more self-driving, not just in Tesla, but in a lot of these other OEMs, as per NVIDIA's Cosmos platform, more humanoid robotics. And if we're going to have more and more and more of this stuff, more consumer AI, that's not really a thing on the iPhone yet, but hopefully in the next year, we have some real Apple intelligence. If that's happening, we need more compute. And if you assume the NVIDIA thesis is no, we need more compute versus less compute, then you buy NVIDIA because you think this is the dumbest dip ever and that NVIDIA is going to cleanly beat the earnings estimates over the next couple of years, and that the street is just kind of scared right now, but getting scared for a reason that is rather irrational. Speaking of someone who benefits a lot from NVIDIA, Perplexity CEO, they have integrated DeepSeek's R1 model into Perplexity, which is a $50 billion or $9 billion company that is essentially an AI search engine. And because it's open source, they don't have to deal with the censorship. So for example, they incorporated DeepSeek's R1 open source model into Perplexity. They asked it, who's the president of Taiwan? And it gives you an actual answer, not a censored answer that the CCP would not want you to get. This is kind of the fear I think the market's having, which is that, okay, if this open source model is so good that you can incorporate it, run it locally, why do we need to be paying hundreds of billions of dollars for ChatGPT's proprietary model? And then Sam Altman's argument is like, hey, DeepSeek's model is good. We're going to be better, number one. Number two, if we want to really get to GPT-10, GPT-15, GPT-20, GPT-100, we're going to need a lot more chips. Which is why Sam Altman, if you guys remember, a couple months ago, he was trying to raise $7 trillion. Now, that didn't happen. We covered that story a long time ago, and obviously he didn't find $7 trillion, but he got kind of close with $500 billion via Stargate, which is essentially all going to prop up OpenAI. And the reason Trump likes it is because he doesn't give a shit about OpenAI. He cares about more jobs. And if we build hundreds of data centers, those are hundreds of thousands of jobs that are going to be beneficial for something like, the American public, which is what Trump cares about. So, oh, wow, we got a headline right here. Binance is under investigation for money laundering, tax fraud, and drug trafficking in France. That's from Reuters. Just came across the screen. There you go. Okay, Binance. We'll keep up with that story and see how that one plays out. So in general, Sam Altman doesn't think this is the end of the world, and most of the NVIDIA analysts don't think this is the end of the world either. However, you do have some analysts coming out and saying, actually, we are a little concerned about this, and we're not buying the easy answer that quickly. This is what Morgan Stanley said. We are cutting our price target to 152 from 166, which is a pretty substantial decline when you realize that every dollar for NVIDIA equals $25 billion that moves. That's why NVIDIA moving $1 or $2 is a big deal, because they have 25 billion shares outstanding. So every buck is another 25 billion. Analyst notes DeepSeek's AI innovations might be deflationary, causing a surprising market reaction. This could lead to export controls or reduce AI spending. The analyst adjusts semiconductor stock price towards downward, but stays optimistic about the sector. The other part of this that's also very important, and why NVIDIA might be taking a 17% hit, is because if the Trump administration comes to the conclusion that China has too much access to AI, then they could potentially have harsher export controls. If they have harsher export controls, that could lead to NVIDIA not being able to sell as many chips, which again could hurt revenues. Now, China's already a small part of NVIDIA's revenues, but if it becomes an even smaller part and NVIDIA is struggling to grow theoretically, that could be something where the street is not necessarily happy about. Here's Trump yesterday talking about DeepSeek AI and what it means for American industries, which actually we'll talk about is pretty bullish for the hyperscalers.
Last week, I signed an order revoking Joe Biden's destructive artificial intelligence regulations so that AI companies can once again focus on being the best, not just being the most woken. Today and over the last couple of days, I've been reading about China and some of the companies in China, one in particular, coming up with a faster method of...
Let me play this video, guys. That audio kind of sucked. Let me play this one. This is better.
And then we're going to get it done again very quickly. Now, I think I do it with an executive order because they didn't go through Congress. I got it approved through Congress. So I think we get it done fast. But It's going to be, that can supply all of Asia with its location. All of Asia can be supplied by Anwar. So there's so many things, but we don't want to have any future president ever sabotage our economy with out of control regulations as the last two Democrat presidents have done. They went crazy. Last week, I signed an order revoking Joe Biden's destructive artificial intelligence regulations so that AI companies can once again focus on being the best, not just being the most woke. And today and over the last couple of days, I've been reading about China and some of the companies in China, one in particular, coming up with a faster method of AI and much less expensive method. And that's good because you don't have to spend as much money. I view that as a positive, as an asset. So I really think if it's fact and if it's true, and nobody really knows if it is, but I view that as a positive because you'll be doing that too. So you won't be spending as much and you'll get the same result, hopefully. The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser focused on competing to win because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that. They said, you have the most brilliant scientists in the world in Seattle and various places. But Silicon Valley, they said, there's nobody like those people. This is very unusual when you hear a DeepSeek, when you hear somebody come up with something. We always have the ideas. We're always first. So I would say that's a positive. That could be very much a positive development. So instead of spending billions and billions, you'll spend less and you'll come up with hopefully the same solution. Under the Trump administration, we're going to unleash our tech companies and we're going to dominate the future like never before. And finally, we need to work together on a defense bill that once again fully rebuilds our military for our great warriors. We have to have a strong.
So that was Trump yesterday. I don't know why the audio is like that. That's not fake. He was at a GOP event in Florida. It's real. I don't know why the microphone was acting like that, because all the videos you go to, whether you go to Fox or Forbes or any of the one that's reporting, the audio sounds kind of iffy. So that probably had to do something at the event. Nonetheless, notice what Trump says. He says this is bullish because costs are going down. So kind of thinking from a business perspective, which makes sense. But then he also says our AI companies have to wake up in the United States. And to me, what that means is buy the other Mag 7. Because essentially, what was the biggest narrative around Google going into 2024? Lina Khan, the FTC, they're going to shut them down. They're going to get rid of YouTube, Google Chrome, et cetera. They're going to just make so many regulatory burdens that it's going to be tough to own Google stock. And that was the narrative that was holding Google back at like 165, 170. That narrative's gone. And I think with the advent of something like DeepSeek, the Trump administration that wants the United States to be the leader in AI, the easiest thing to make us not the leader in AI is take away American companies' ability to compete. And in particular, if Google doesn't have all the resources they need to be able to succeed when it comes to artificial intelligence, because they're dealing with an FTC that's trying to break them up, that's just not going to work. And obviously, that's not going to be good for shareholders. That's definitely not going to be good for American national security if you believe that Google being a leader in AI matters. So I think DeepSeek, in some respect, woke everybody up, especially in the Trump administration when it comes to understanding what it means for companies in America to be valuable in AI. And that should be rather bullish for the broader hyperscaler sector, even if it's not necessarily the most bullish for NVIDIA in the short term. Meta, by the way, hitting another all-time high in the pre-markets, up another 1%. Just incredible. They were upgraded to 700 by a couple firms today, and the entire synopsis of their upgrade was that not only do those firms think they're going to keep spending on CapEx, but they also think the open source revolution is here. They think the closed source models might be a little bit better than Meta's, but not substantially better. And if Meta keeps investing in open source models, they're going to be able to get a lot more customers using their models and eventually be able to monetize that in the back end. And that is why the street is getting pretty excited about what Meta's growth could be like. The street's expecting about $46 billion in revenue and $6.73 of EPS tomorrow after the bell. We are going to get those results from Meta. Palantir right now is at 74.66. Palantir is down about 1%. For those that didn't see the Palantir clip yesterday, in the midst of all the NVIDIA turmoil that we dealt with, there was a little bit of talk on Palantir on CNBC, basically making the argument that the large language models are commoditized, and Karp is probably laughing about all this.
Josh's point about the large language models, I'm a big fan of Alex Karp, I'm sure he's kind of laughing today at Palantir because he's been saying forever, LLMs are the commodity. It's what you build on top of that is what's going to create the return. And so if Masa and Larry Ellison and Sam Altman are building all these data centers to go just infer for OpenAI, I think you call that into question.
So again, the broader argument that LLMs don't matter, how you operationalize them matter, aka Foundry and AIP. And that's why, although Palantir is getting hit because it's a high beta growth stock and NVIDIA falling means Palantir is probably going to take a hit, it doesn't really question or challenge the thesis of Palantir. Okay, it looks like we got a headline right here, and then we'll get into some of the earnings we got this morning. OpenAI launches ChatGPT for government agencies. A ChatGPT product for government agencies. Yeah, here we go. Here's the headline. We just got it. Before I even read the article, my initial reaction is I don't know if government agencies want to trust ChatGPT off the front, but nonetheless, OpenAI looks like they're offering it. OpenAI announced its biggest product launch since its enterprise rollout. It's called ChatGPT Gov, and it was built specifically for U.S. government use. OpenAI bills the new platform as a step beyond ChatGPT Enterprise as far as security. Okay, so we got to assume that security and governance for OpenAI is going to be sophisticated enough to be implemented in the US government. Here's what they say. The Microsoft-backed company now bills the new platform as a step beyond ChatGPT. It allows government agencies as customers to feed non-public sensitive information into OpenAI's models while operating within their own secure hosting environments. Since the beginning of 2024, OpenAI said that more than 90,000 employees of federal, state, and local governments have generated more than 18 million prompts with ChatGPT, using the tech to translate and summarize documents, write and draft policy memos, generate code, and build applications. The user interface for ChatGPT Government looks like ChatGPT Enterprise. The main difference is that government agencies will use ChatGPT Government in their own Microsoft Azure Commercial Cloud or Azure Government Community Cloud, so they can manage their own security, privacy, and compliance requirements. An OpenAI spokesperson told CNBC that the company acknowledges there are special considerations for government use of AI, and OpenAI wrote in a blog post today, Tuesday, that product is subject to its usage policies. Okay. Cool. Is that why Palantir dumped? It could. This could be the reason Palantir took a little bit of a hit if the market thinks that this is going to be competitive with Palantir's government business. I think we have to get more details on this. From my understanding, again, based on the types of contracts Palantir wins and the 20 years of pretty much no issues Palantir has had in regards to securitizing and making sure government information is governed correctly and is kept safe, that would give the government more credence to go with something like a Palantir over a ChatGPT. But it also comes down to how expensive is it? It comes down to political relationships. Microsoft obviously owns a ton of ChatGPT. Microsoft has a ton of government contracts in regards to Azure Cloud. So being able to negotiate those deals together, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. But this could be an argument for, why Palantir gets hit. Now, granted, Palantir is it's not just used as a chatbot. There's a lot more high-level sophisticated use cases when it comes to the DoD. And it looks like what ChatGPT is describing for government agencies is like the IRS needs to summarize a document and it uses ChatGPT. And the IRS agent probably already wants to use something like ChatGPT, but it's banned from their government computers, obviously, because they can't have that sensitive data in there. So it seems like this is just more of a safer, secure version for them to use it, which might actually be good for the government, potentially. Or good for ChatGPT and good for the government, but it also might be a little bit more competitive with some of these other arguments as well. So, yeah, I don't think this is that serious of a deal, but it could be something that increases ChatGPT's go-to-market. The thing here, though, is, again, I don't think it even matters if ChatGPT is selling to the government. I think OpenAI has fundamentally lost some significant parts of their moat. If DeepSeek can build what they've built for significantly less, which is a fact, even though DeepSeek has a ton of GPUs, the training models that they used, or the strategies that they used has been verified as, yes, it cost a lot less than what OpenAI has been doing. And the model is almost the same as OpenAI outside of all the Chinese propaganda. So I think it broadly questions if you've invested in OpenAI at 150 billion, is it actually worth 150 billion? Or could it be worth $1 trillion? Because if you invested at 150 billion, you're obviously investing for $1 trillion exit. You're assuming a 10x or much more than that. Is OpenAI actually going to get there? I think that is the broader question. Grok as well. Yeah, I mean, look, I think Grok is catching up. Grok has proprietary data. So there's just so much competition to the foundation models. And it begs the question, can they actually build sustainable forms of revenue, either in the subscription tier or through advertising, which I don't think OpenAI really loves the whole advertising model, so they want to go direct to the consumer. Will people pay? Will people pay at the end of the day? This is the headline right here from Walt from Bloomberg. French investigators have opened judicial probe into money laundering, tax fraud, and drug trafficking. Other charges against crypto platform for Binance. CZ, who's the founder of Binance, he went to jail for, I think, a year, and then he was released in late 2024. Bitcoin down a little bit on this news, down about 1% right here. Bitcoin's still holding nicely, dude. It was at 97,000 yesterday when NVIDIA was at its worst and rebounded above 102. It's looking like 100,000 might seriously start becoming support for Bitcoin, which would be incredible, even if it doesn't go that much more beyond it. The fact that it's staying at these levels is not the worst thing in the world. And you got Bitcoin right here at 102, even with the Binance investigation that is going on right now. Okay, so that's what we got on NVIDIA. We will talk a lot more about it at 9:30 and keep going from there. I would not be upset to buy the dip again today, especially if we stay in this 120 to 122 range. Would I be surprised if NVIDIA gaps all the way up to like 125, 126? No. Would I be surprised if it goes back to 117, given the narrative is kind of hit on NVIDIA? I wouldn't be surprised about that either. NVIDIA right there, 121.48 in the pre-market's up 2.58% right now. The most surprising thing to me about NVIDIA is that they didn't recover yesterday. They went down, they stayed down, and the selling pressure continued to be so expansive that it just kept hitting a new low. And then finally, 116.7, it bottomed, and it rebounded up to 118 to end out the day. But it was not a fun day for NVIDIA. $600 billion in a day gone. I mean, I was hearing some stories about NVIDIA employees that were like, they just joined the company. They just got their stock options at like 130, 140 bucks. This is the hard part about Silicon Valley. If you join when the company is mooning, like I remember meeting a Robinhood employee that joined in 2021. His stock option strikes were at 40. And then Robinhood fell to $6, right? And then I met some other Robinhood employees at their gold event that joined and they got their stock options at $10. So it's just like the time you join and the market dynamics kind of determines your equity compensation. And if you just joined NVIDIA at 150, 145, and that's where your strikes are for your grants, you're probably really annoyed because those are like potentially millions of dollars that you're down on paper right now because of what's happening. So today's going to be the second day where we see how the market makers react to it, how hedge funds react to it. I still think there's a hell of an argument that Chinese hedge funds went short because they knew this was going to happen and they made a lot of money off of it. There are some reports that are claiming they have evidence that they know that Chinese hedge funds did it. If they did, it's a smart move. It would be another form of manipulation that the Chinese government is implementing in some way in the United States. Let's check if DeepSeek is still number one. This is the other thing that hurts, dude. Like, we can't ban DeepSeek. I mean, we could, but Trump would have to like reverse his stance on TikTok because he loves TikTok. So theoretically, he should love DeepSeek. DeepSeek's still number one in productivity. Let's check in the broader app store. DeepSeek still number one, dude. I don't know how the hell these guys got number one. Because do people care about DeepSeek on Twitter? Yeah, because there's a lot of tech nerds. But like the general public, do they actually care about DeepSeek? I guess so, if they're number one on the App Store. And we showed this yesterday on the close. This is another reason why it's really unbelievable for the people that are using this on a daily basis, outside of running it on your actual your own open source model, like locally, because then that takes away some of the harm. But DeepSeek stores all of your data in the People's Republic of China. We store the information we collect in secure servers located in the People's Republic of China, and they track every IP address, keynote pattern, and device info from where you're logging on, and obviously the content that you type into the large language model, and they store it in China. And it's one of those things that's like, like, why are we using this thing? Like TikTok, I get it. It's these stupid videos that brainwash Americans, and like you scroll through it and it's an algorithm and it's like, all right, like, although it's dumb, like I get how it can manipulate you, but this thing is just like, you don't have to use this. ChatGPT is still better. Grok is still better. And still people are downloading this as number one, which is insane. Just absolutely insane. So I guess we're going to see how the market ultimately reacts to that later throughout the day, and definitely in 15 minutes at 9:30. Rob, thank you for the $10 super chat. Amit, do you really think DeepSeek was hacked yesterday, or was it because their GPU servers couldn't handle the bandwidth? I have no idea. I'm a little skeptical of they had this massive malicious cyber attack. In my opinion, I don't really believe that to such a degree, especially because they didn't release any other details on it. So it could be that their GPUs just weren't strong enough to handle the demand, and they didn't want to act like they weren't a legit company that can handle all these new servers coming in. But who knows? It could have been a cyber attack. The thing is, we have so many more questions than answers, and that's what's making everything so. And I think the market has more questions than answers as well. But hopefully, over the next couple of days, when we get more reaffirmation of capex, we will have some more answers.